welcome back to Hairy John's YouTube channel and Hairy John's Kitchen. In today's video I'm going to be making a bramble wine, also known as Blackberry wine. And sorry it's been a while since I posted a video, lots going on, and you should have some exciting news for the channel in a couple of weeks anyway. Cool, so without further ado, let me show you all of the ingredients we're going to use today. Okay, so here are the ingredients and equipment we are going to need today. So you might have noticed that there's an awful lot of sugar here. That is because I'm going to be making 2 gallons of red wine today. So yes, this is not all the blackberries I'm going to be using. This is just what I picked yesterday, and I have more blackberries in the freezer. So I will add those off camera shortly. Now, I'm going to be using this year a Burgundy Red because the Home Brew shop didn't have the usual Bordeaux wine yeast that I use to make my blackberry wine. So he did highly recommend this Burgundy for a blackberry wine. It also naturally ferments at a lower alcoholic volume. At the end, typically about 13.5%, I was told. Now I prefer this because the less potent a wine is, the more flavour I feel it has. So for me personally, I'm quite excited to try this Burgundy red wine yeast this year. As usual, make sure you clean and sterilise all of the equipment you're going to be using today. But yes, we need the fermentation bucket, and we're going to be approximately going to about 10 or 11 litres. This is around the 2 gallon mark. And yes, that's all the equipment we are going to need and ingredients. Now I will point out that yeah, I still haven't bought a new hydrometer to measure the specific gravity, the sugar content in the wine. I've broken both of mine, so I'm going to put equal amounts of sugar and fruit into this mix, which has always worked for me in the past, and it's more like a traditional way of making wine. Brilliant. So yes, we are going for 2 gallons, and that means I'm going to need approximately 2.6 kilograms of sugar and fruit. So let me get the blackberries out of the freezer to add to this fermentation bucket, and we are going to add hot water to it next. Okay, so as you can see now, there are a lot more blackberries in there. So these are just blackberries I've picked over the last few days. Okay, so I've just boiled the kettle, and even though we're making 2 gallons of wine, I'm going to fill it up to the gallon or 5 litre measurement now, just before I add this sugar. Okay. Alright, I thought it'd be funny to see me pour this water in first anyway. It might help you guys enjoy the video a bit more. There we go. So I just filled this kettle up to the maximum line I could. May not be a gallon on the first go. Well, let's have a little look. No, so it's roughly about half a gallon. Alright, so I'll boil the kettle again. Okay, so the kettle is boiled again. Let's see if we can get to half a gallon now. Sorry, a full gallon actually. Yeah, this should be great. Now I did notice that some of these blackberries, because I have cleaned and then frozen them, and because of the amount, there is still a little bit of ice in here. So I may add just a little bit of water just so that this is hot, because the next step is adding the sugar, and we want this sugar to dissolve. Can't say that word. I want this sugar to dissolve, so that it all just mixes into this wine must very nicely. Okay, so I'll put the kettle on one more time. I'm going to go to about a a gallon and a half maybe, and then I will double check if it is warm enough to dissolve the sugar. Okay, so I've added some more boiling water, and this is at a good temperature now that the sugar is going to dissolve. So this is 2.6 kilograms of sugar, and I went with fair trade Demira sugar, and what was the other one? A soft brown sugar as well. It was what they had. You can use most sugars. I just try to get the least refined ones I can. Usually has a nicer flavour. Alright, so we've got about 2 different tones of sugar about to get poured in. Now be careful. Yeah, as much as I like pouring this in, it's looking quite heavy, so I'm probably going to have to do this off camera. Alright. Okay, so I wanted you guys to see this, but I'm very worried that yeah, the weight of this is going to make this wine must go everywhere. So I'm going to put this in gradually by hand this time. Red wine can stain very easily, so definitely good to be cautious on this. But hopefully you can see this and it looks nice on camera. I always love doing this. Here we go. There's the Demira sugar. I can pour that in. Oh, okay. Got some of that soft brown mixed in. There we go. Brilliant. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the reason that we add the sugar to the fermentation bucket before we filled up to our 2-gallon line, or I'm going to go for about 11 litres just to be safe, is because you can see the volume has increased quite a lot when I've added the sugar. So before the sugar it was around here. Now that I've added the sugar, it's up here. So if you fill up to the 2-gallon line before you've added the sugar, you can end up with 2.5 gallons. So you don't want to waste any wine, and you don't want to lose any flavour. So always add the sugar before you've filled up to the gallon line, whichever you're going for. If you're just going for 1 gallon, then just half the ingredients that I've used today. That's pretty standard. Alright, so I'm going to give this a good stir so that the sugar dissolves, and I'm going to add more hot water so that I reach this 2-gallon or 11 litre line. Okay, so here we are, guys. So we're roughly around that 11 litre mark. I'm pretty happy with that now. So the next step, we have to let this cool down so that we can add the yeast. Yeah, that's smelling great now. So the yeast will actually die, I believe, if it's anything over 25 degrees C. So I like this to cool down to about 20 degrees C before I add the yeast. So this is why I like to do this step in the morning, because you can just leave this, it'll probably take a few hours just to cool down to about 20 degrees C. Alright, so we'll come back to it when it's cooled down, and feel free, you can leave the lid off if you want it to cool down quicker, or I'm probably going to put the lid on and just let it take its time. Okay, we are back. So the wine, or the must, has now cooled down, I believe, to about 19 degrees. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, so I think we've got 19.2 degrees C there, which is fine. The yeast will be absolutely fine in that. So this packet of yeast is good for 5 gallons. So we're going for 2 gallons on this. So I've measured out roughly just under half. It doesn't matter if you put a little bit too much in this, I've been told. So yeah, this is just under half of the packet, so this is going to be plenty for 2 gallons. So I will try and add this on camera. Awkward. There we go. Brilliant. Now, we let that sit on top of this wine must now for, I believe, 15 minutes, and then we stir it in. So we'll come back in just a minute. Alright, so it's been 15 minutes now, so you can see that the yeast has been slightly absorbed and discoloured by the wine must, and all we need to do now is just stir it in. There we go, and that's it. So the hard part is over now. All we need to do is keep coming back about 2 times a day, give it a good stir, and in a week's time we go into secondary fermentation. This is now primary fermentation. Alright, so put this bucket somewhere between about 18 and 24 degrees C, and the yeast will just start to eat the sugars that are in this wine and in this must, and create your wine. It smells so good already, so really excited to see how this keeps going. Okay, one last thing I almost forgot. Make sure you cover the wine must in the fermentation bucket with a lid, but don't put it on tight. And this is because as the fermentation is going on, gases will be released. So if you press this on tight, you will have the lid popping off quite aggressively, whereas if you just lay it on top just lightly like that, if any gases escape, the worst that'll happen will just something like that.